Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to our Getting to Know the Speaker series. I'm really excited today to introduce you to a new speaker on our program for next week. It's Wednesday, so we're already less than a week to the event. Hopefully you're seeing this maybe Thursday or Friday. Yeah, we're excited to have you at Flow Factor next week, Tuesday, June 11th. So today, we have Oindrilla from Western Governors with us. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Chris. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, it's very good to have you here today. So all of our different talks we've been doing over the last few weeks are for people attending the conference to get to know you a little bit, the speaker, to kind of make that connection. So we always start off with a little bit of your background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up in what you're doing today, and just help us get to know you a little.
Sure, thank you. So I am basically in computer science engineer, did my studies and most of my life and in work was in India. So I used to work for Mercedes-Benz Research and Development India back in Bangalore, got married, came to this beautiful city of Utah. And after that, I joined Cricket, which was, a craft company for a very brief period of time. And as of today, I'm in Western Governors University, working as a senior QA engineer. So all of my work has been with QA and quality assurance. I have actually seen how testing per se has evolved and how starting with just manual testing, things have started becoming more complicated, more customer oriented, and so many different changes as the technology changes, how subsequently the QA and a QE process changes. So that has been fun. It's like a little more than 9 years right now in the industry, and I still am with the quality assurance stuff.
Awesome. So you mentioned Western Governors, so you're our second speaker from Western Governors. We had Adam on a little while ago, Adam Boswell, and he was telling us about the journey that you guys have taken to AWS. Can you tell me a little bit about, what your involvement is with cloud and what your team is, not so much what they're doing, but more what you're doing with cloud technologies?
Sure. So, Chris, when we started off, there were a lot of inhibitions and confusion about this entire online education and online college thing. So when we started off, there were a lot of people who were not very sure if, they should go for an online college, or is it, does it have the equal calibers, like the one actually attending the college in person. But as and when we started evolving, we understood the market, we kind of upgraded our study material. The students saw extreme potential in what they can achieve just by getting into a college degree, and especially with Western Governors University. So there are people who never thought they could go back to college, and now they're like very happy studying part-time, managing job, managing babies, and traveling, and still kind of ensuring that they have all the study material in place. So when we have these kind of end customer, it makes it extremely important that the availability as well as the scalability and the reliability of our products match up to that expectation. If there is a student who wants to study at 3 a.m., he should be able to do that. He should not wait for a server to come up, or have a bad 404, or all those weird messages which makes us really angry.
Yeah.
So going on that basis, we thought that AWS first cloud, and then of course AWS would be the best route to take with the kind of features we have, not only based on scalability, but security and accessibility and the ease of deployment of code. I think it was the best thing that we could have, kind of gone into.
Yeah.
And when we started, exploring what else can be done, I think cloud gives us a lot of freedom in terms of the kind of things we are planning to come up and are doing. And, so I think that was one of the best decisions that we have taken.
Awesome. Okay. So, as you talk about that, part of my company, Rip City Software, we've been involved in a lot of either cloud migrations or working with cloud environments. And one of the most important aspects of that migration or that implementation is having a really good test coverage, whether it's starting at unit testing, but integration testing and, making sure that your services work with other services. Can you tell me a little bit about, your personal philosophy and approach to testing services that are going to run in the cloud? And then maybe we can move into microservices after that. But just sort of from a high level, what are your sort of maybe top items that you look for when you're trying to test a system that's going to be deployed to AWS?
Absolutely. So, Chris, I actually came from a background like where I studied a lot of programming, and that was something that I actually wanted to go when I started off my career, but QA kind of chose me. So when I started working in QA, I realized that the scope of QA is immense. So most of the time, what happens is if we want to deliver a product, we get the requirements, we know what the product is supposed to do, and we kind of start with that frame of mind, and we start working. Nobody actually thinks what is the product not supposed to do, or what if we have everything in place and the product can do this as well. So these kind of thought process comes up when you have a really good testing and quality assurance process in place. There are a lot of times when all the defects or all the bugs that you find out in the course of action are not actually defect. They can be an add-on to the product. You go to the customer and say, you know what, this is what we have developed, but we can do this as well. So why don't you have this add-on and go ahead with it? And when you have this kind of thought process, it's like it's how to break the system to make the system stronger. Yeah. So understand what your product is doing, understand how good and better it can be made, what are the things it is supposed to do, what are the entry points, what are the exit points, and who would be, kind of a subject matter expert. One thing, I really draw a connection with QA with something that we all kind of face in our life is, let's suppose you're going to a mathematics examination, you know all the questions, and to solve each question, you take like an hour. So even though you know all the questions, you could solve just one, not good. And suppose another question is like, you were so confident that you go to the examination, just hurry up everything, do not read the question properly, and end up, messing up entire, exam. So that is not good. So that's the same thing with QA. You want to make a good product, but you have to take time. You should not be only concentrating on the correctness of the application, but also how it is performing. So all those things taken together actually makes a good product. And as a QA is not basically just checking if the things are working as expected. It's about, grooming. It's about understanding where are the loopholes, where are the point of injections, where are the things which are supposedly likely to cause a ripple effect,
Right.
So all those things together, I get very excited whenever I get a new application, and there's so much to think about. There's so much of weird ways where you can break and make. So it's kind of interesting for me.
Nice. Well, so that's actually a great segue. As microservices have become more popular, obviously, we've taken large applications and created lots of little application, which means, at least I think, if the surface area of a monolith is fairly large, and so there's a really good chance you could miss things on, no matter how thorough you are. But as we take that monolith and make it into a really small application, our surface area is a lot smaller, and so now you can find bugs a lot. Maybe not faster, but you could certainly find more bugs. How have you found your experience with testing change as you have worked towards more of a microservices architecture, maybe from, say, years ago when it might have been more monolithic type applications?
Exactly. So, Chris, when I started off with just monolithic application, my test cases and the stuff that I need to test were considerably low. I have a starting point. I make sure that the next step that I'm going to is successfully reached. So A to B, B to C, C to D, D is fine. So I kind of can be confident that, okay, A to B to C to D, everything is working as expected. With microservice, the scope is enormous. I mean, like each service is like a product in itself. Each service is, powerful in its own way. These days, you don't even share the DB. So what is getting stored into an individual DB? That itself is a question. And not only that, see, it's about, you have a lot of product, you have so much of data, and you have so much of reach to the people. So there are people whose entire business might be, dependent on your microservice. So you have this responsibility towards them. So it gets a little more tricky. It gets a little more stressful, and it creates a demand to start automating. You need to automate things. You cannot just be sure that, okay, whenever the new code is deployed, I can go and I can do a regression, maybe not sleep at night and still, execute everything. That's not the way. You have to kind of understand that now testers and developers do not actually work in silos. They actually overlap in their work. So what I always prefer is using, I kind of understand what the full stack development program the developer is using. I try to use the same technology for my, automating my script, so that whenever there is an issue or whenever there is a, discussion or something that needs to be clarified, I can work parallel with my developers and understand. So with microservices, I think the need and the scope of automation has become really, really high. And so, I have to do that. Okay. Second, I also believe with microservices, you have to understand how the performance of your application is. It's like one object pushing something to the next object that kind of goes, and you don't want to get, kind of lost in the latency cycle or, garbage collection cycle. No. So I think you have to take a more holistic approach. But see the wonderful things that we are creating with microservices. So I think it's worth it.
Awesome. Well, and that was a perfect segue to something you and I've chatted a little bit before this interview was about automation and your passion towards automation and testing. So why don't we talk about that or tell us a little bit about that and what your thoughts are around automation and what you've been doing.
So when we initially started off, so back in 2010, it was mostly record and play. You have those buttons where you click and you have this entire, your web page getting recorded. That is not something that you can do right now. UI is definitely an aspect, but at the same time, with so much of web services, microservices, Lambdas coming in, you have to make sure that your backend, your front end, and your DB, all the three aspects have been properly covered. And when I say properly covered, I think there should be individual importance given to each of these layers. And so what I do is mostly I work with the Selenium framework and Java, but I think Rest Assured is one of the most powerful framework that I have used. It's an absolute beauty. So, doing more such stuff. So that is something which I have started working very, very seriously now, and especially with Western Governors University, we have such a huge, variation of users. There are students, there are teachers, there is me, there is people who just want to get on the website and understand what we are doing. And to be able to, kind of live up to the expectations of everybody, you have to understand that, each and every aspect is extremely important to cover.
Yep. Awesome. Well, and I think that feeds nicely into a little bit about what you're going to talk about at Flow Factor on Tuesday. So you have a session, I'm looking at it right now, our last session of the morning before lunch, called Ensuring Quality Product While Working with Microservices, Agile, and Cloud. Can you give us a little teaser on what we can expect to hear next week?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know what, I'm going to concentrate on the fact and the kind of work we are doing to have a robust and strong product with so much of options, with so much of handy tools, available to us. It gets a little more important to make sure that whatever you're creating is working as expected, is performing as expected, and also has a scope of improvement. As in, if tomorrow you want to add a new layer, how or when or, in which way is it going to affect? Like you want to scale to another 5,000 users, you need to be prepared today. So how do you do that? So everything is a part of, ensuring quality. And of course, you have a lot of information about cloud. I'll be talking about my experience with cloud and web services and how, they're kind of little tricky things to handle at times. But then I think, it's going to be a lot of my experience that I'm going to bring into the session.
Okay, awesome. That's great. I'm looking forward to hearing some of that. I have a couple of sessions, but I'm free at that spot of the day, so hopefully I can drop in and see what you got going on.
Awesome, Chris. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so before we wrap up, I've been asking each person to give us a question, something you want those listening to ponder, something that when people see you at the event next week, they can come up to you and say, hey, I was thinking about your question. So have you had a chance to think about what you want to ask somebody? Or
Yes,
you want to ask? Okay. All right, so go ahead. What's your question?
so, Chris, I would like each of the members who are coming to the conference to imagine they're a CEO or maybe a product owner. And I want them to think, what is the difference between a happy customer and a confident customer? So you have a customer, you have delivered a product. How do you save the customer? Do you want just a happy customer who's happy with your product? Or do you want a confident customer who will repeatedly come back to you for your service? So,
Awesome.
I want them to think, what is the difference and what would they want to do? So,
Awesome. I like it. That's a great question. Really good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your night. For those who can't really tell, but it's kind of getting late at night for us. And Oindrilla was able to fit me in her day today, so thank you for that. And well, again, next week we're going to be getting together at Embassy Suites, and really looking forward to your session. So thanks for being part of the conference.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. This is an absolute honor.
Awesome. All right. Have a good night.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.